Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just My Stupid Opinion. I'm Adrian Lloyd. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about some evolving theories about what ended up happening with Jeffrey Epstein. Because, one of the thing that a lot of people are starting to jump on of right now is, did Jeffrey Epstein actually escape from prison rather than him being murdered? That what we saw was an elaborate escape attempt from this prison, and now he's been moved somewhere else, wherever. Some people are saying he's on an island, some people are saying he's in Israel, and plenty of other places. So I wanted to explore this idea. Did Jeffrey Epstein actually escape? Now, personally, from everything that I've seen so far, and when I try and look at it as logically as possible, I don't think that that's the case, because to get Jeffrey Epstein removed would be a lot more difficult, a lot more time consuming than just having him killed. See, having him killed would have solved all the problems of the ruling class right now, because their biggest fear was that Jeffrey Epstein had all this evidence on them and he was going to out them. So he would go to trial. He was prepared to name names in order to get a reduced sentence on this, sort of trying to get another sweetheart deal, kind of like what he had in 2007. But this really would have solved all their issues if they just offed him. Now, I don't think anybody out there is currently buying that he committed suicide. And if he did commit suicide, the only reason he would have done it is because more or less he was told to, as in he was threatened and told that if he didn't off himself, then what they were going to do to him was going to be a lot worse than simply a hanging or something like that. Although I think someone came in and assassinated him, because this was a guy who looked like he was preparing to talk. He's preparing to turn in evidence to save his own skin. I don't really see him as being the type of person to just off himself in the process. Plus, we had just a few weeks ago, there was that quote-unquote suicide attempt that didn't end up happening, although a lot of people believe it was that cop who was in the next cell, that was in the cell next to him, who had been involved in a quadruple homicide. A lot of people are pointing to that as probably the one who may have tried to off him in the first place a few weeks ago, but this was the one that ended up being successful. So if Jeffrey Epstein was actually alive right now, the reason I don't really think that that's the case, although as I kind of look through it, I can see where some people are coming with that from. When you kind of look at some of the evidence that's out there, I could definitely see where they're getting this idea. So the problem with that, though, is that it would be a lot of time and effort and a lot of people not involved in your inner circle that you would have to keep quiet. So for instance, you would have to get people into the prison. You would have to pay off the right people, the right guards, in order to look the other way, which, regardless, this seems to be what ends up happening. You would, if you're not paying off the guards directly protecting Jeffrey Epstein, you would at least have to pay off one of their superiors who could then get them to leave the area, which did end up happening. Is it turns out, I have something over here, there were some guards that were, here we go. Source: 2 guards at MCC Manhattan Correctional Center who normally have overnight shifts that watches over suicide risk inmates were both told to leave area 3 hours earlier for scheduled maintenance to jail cells and hallways. So if this was the case, then it seems that was the right people getting paid off, although you could do the same in order to carry out an assassination attempt against Jeffrey Epstein, because the problem is you need to get in there, you need to find a way to get him out, which would have been the gurney that we ended up seeing, and then the medical van. You would have to transport him through the facility, and something like this would draw some attention. You would have to get him out, and then from there, you would have to get him out of the country, most likely. You would want to get him out of the country because his face is plastered everywhere. Everyone knows who he is now, that it's not really something he could not just stay in the U.S. and nobody would know who he is. And they could take him to a different they could take him to an island, they could take him to well, some people are saying Israel, due to the connection that we have back to the Mossad, because we know that Jeffrey Epstein has a lot of connections leading back to Israel, including the people he has supported, the money that he's given. I believe if I remember correctly, he's given money to the Israeli Defense Force, but also the fact that his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father was a well-known Mossad asset. So there's that. So this is a possibility, but it doesn't seem like a likely one, because why would they go to all this effort to get Jeffrey Epstein out, and for what reason? He's, regardless of who we look through, if it's the ruling class, well, Jeffrey Epstein has rubbed shoulders with them, but he's also blackmailed them over the last few decades. He's been the one that's been gathering evidence on all of these people, bringing them to his island or his house, having video cameras set up, so they don't really owe him anything. And then even if we explored a line of thinking that he was an asset for an intelligence agency, well, they burn assets all the time. I don't believe he was necessarily like an agent or anything, but just an asset who is being used to pass on information, especially blackmail information, that it doesn't seem likely that they would go to the effort and possibly get discovered just so they could get Jeffrey Epstein out of prison, when they could just knock him off, which happens a lot of time when an asset gets burned and is no longer useful to them. They either leave them to the wolves, or if the asset knows enough information, they off them. So either way, I don't really see it as the option that they would have gone with. But I understand, when I kind of look at this evidence, why people are starting to question this, why people don't believe that Jeffrey Epstein was really the one on that gurney, really the one that was getting transported out. Because when you kind of look at the body, things kind of look suspicious. So when we kind of look at this here, with a lot of things that people are pointing to with between the two photos of Epstein has to do with the nose and the ears. Those are the big ones that people are looking at. So we kind of look at the nose over here. The nose on the corpse kind of has this curved shape like that. But when we look at Epstein's nose when he was all fine and healthy, it kind of just comes out. So it doesn't really, it draws suspicion to a lot of people. Maybe some people could say that it's a broken nose, but I still don't know about that. And then a lot of people are pointing at the ears right here, about how his ears are oddly shaped, and how you kind of compare it to his ears up here. And there's some shapes that are kind of similar, but it looks kind of different. So I understand when people look at this, and especially when they're told not to trust the mainstream sources, when they look at them and just reporting on him committing suicide, they don't really believe it. There's some similarities in the ears, but what I would say is on the corpse, there seems to be a lot more, if you want to call them, I don't even know if you say jagged edges, but it's just a lot more emphasis on the curves than there are on the healthy Epstein ear, where it just seems very, very subtle, like very normal looking, where there's a lot of jutting in these ears here, a lot of, excuse me, almost a lot of angles that are in there, where there seems to be a lot more curves in the ears. And I understand this. Nobody is really sure. A lot of people are theorizing that maybe it's a dead body, a body double that was brought in order to appear to be Jeffrey Epstein, but it's not really him that was on the gurney. Now, some people believe that the man that they saw, that we're seeing on the gurney, is this man here on the left. Excuse me, I'm just getting over being a little sick, so my throat's kind of scratchy. So a lot of people are looking at this man on the left, and that is Tony Rodham, who is Hillary Clinton's brother, who died not too long ago, I think just a few months ago. And some people are theorizing that this was who was on the gurney. I don't know, maybe it's some sort of, I guess sort of the theory that I hear is that the Clintons wanted Epstein offed because of what he knows and of all the times Bill Clinton has rode the Lolita Express with him. But then somebody wanted him out, whether another member of the ruling class or maybe the Mossad or another intelligence agency, anyway. And that they got him out but replaced him with a double, and that double was Tony Rodham, as to sort of send a message to Hillary Clinton that she would see this and know that Epstein's not dead and he's still out there. I don't really see what would be the relevance to that. But really the main thing when I look at it is that the features that we were just examining don't really line up with the corpse that we're seeing. So if, again, you look at the nose, and it's kind of just sort of on a gentle slope outward and doesn't really have this curved look that we're seeing on this corpse. So that doesn't really add up. And even the ears, while Tony has his ears do have a little more of are a little more angled, the inner workings of the ear, it doesn't line up with what we're seeing on the corpse. And I suppose you could maybe make the argument that the ear on the corpse kind of looks swollen, and I don't know if that's a feature, if somebody getting strangled or hanged, that was necessarily something that would happen. I don't know, but a lot of the features don't really add up to me that I necessarily believe it. I can kind of see the similarities in general from the corpse to Tony here, but I don't believe that this is the man that we're seeing on this gurney here. The ones that they're trying to say is the one instead of Epstein. I kind of see a little bit of similarities in maybe how the type of hair that they have, if you were to dye this hair more white to match Epstein. And this area right here where it's coming down just to before it forms the sideburn, I could see a little bit of similarities to what's on the corpse, but that's not enough for me to actually say that this is Tony Rodham. So that's the only thing when I kind of look at this, why I'm not really necessarily buying that Tony Rodham is the one that is on the one that was on the gurney. And you're seeing this kind of all over. Let's see, I had something else I thought I wanted to show on this. So, whether or not this is actually Epstein, that it's showing that Epstein is in fact alive and is transported out, I don't know about that, because for all of everything I've named before. But one thing in particular that people are starting to also kind of look towards in order to show that he was transported out was something that was posted to 4chan. And this was posted pretty much as news was breaking about Jeffrey Epstein being dead. And it was this post right here that says, "Not saying anything after this, please do not try to dox me, but last night at 0415 hour count, they took him medical in a wheelchair, front cuffs, but not one triage nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a trip van shows up. We do not do releases on the weekends unless a judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself. Here's the thing, the trip van did not sign in and we did not record the plate number, and a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I am shaking right now, but I think they switched him out." So that's one reason, plus just what I've pointed out already. A lot of other people pointed this out. What I've found that other people have pointed out This is why a lot of people believe that. Another one I'll just quickly show too is this here, which is showing like a couple of pictures that were taken from the New York Post about this, where some of these bodies are being shown, and people are showing that this is showing some inconsistencies, because down here at the bottom, what you're seeing just right here is supposed to be taken in the prison as he's getting wheeled out, and then the next one over is supposed to be I'm sorry. The first one is supposed to be at the hospital. And then the second one here is supposed to be, I guess, a little farther into the hospital, but a lot of people are pointing out how this appears to be actually the New York Fire Department garage, and they're pointing to a few things, such as up here on the center picture at the top, they're showing these orange gurneys there, which seem to be not one that you would find in a hospital, but you would find actually in the fire department, as well as like there's an air hose on the wall. The one that a lot of people are pointing to is this, just off to the side is this sign here, the screen sign, which says please turn off your engine, which they say that you would find inside of a hospital. You would find inside, the fire department, not at the hospital. So these are just a few reasons why. Again, between all of them, I think it's more likely that Epstein ended up offing himself. Someone ended up murdering Epstein. Oh, I put on the wrong one. Just because it seems to make more sense to me. The other thing about the hanging and everything is it doesn't really make sense, as this is a picture here that we're looking at right now of Jeffrey Epstein's cell, the type of cell that he would be into. And there's not really a good area in order for him to hang himself. There are the bars over here, which is about the only thing that he could possibly use. But I have a few problems with that. Number one is that when you're in this sort of area, the secured facility, they take everything from you that you could possibly use in order to hang yourself with or commit suicide. So your shoelaces, any unnecessary towels, sharp objects such as pens and pencils, they don't really give you these things. So it really wouldn't be a good, what could he have used to actually hang himself? But on top of that, there's not really an area for him to hang himself. The only thing you could possibly use would maybe be these bars, but I have some problems with that, and it has to do with human instinct. The human body, especially if you are not in a state where you actually do want to commit suicide, this might be different for people who are hell-bent on committing suicide, but the human body, naturally, when you try and choke it off, is going to struggle and try and get yourself out of that position. Because, it's not natural. You're choking yourself out. You can't breathe. You're crushing your windpipes. That it's just natural for you to try and regain your footing and stop that choking. This is why a lot of victims who hang themselves will get up on a chair and then knock that chair away, because there's no way for them to really get their footing back. They're going through with it to the end. There's nowhere for really Jeffrey Epstein to do this. He can't really climb on top of anything and knock it away. In order to successfully hang himself, he would kind of have to just slump down, slump his body weight against the cord if he was to actually have gone through with it. Just none of this is really adding up to me. So I know nobody's really buying it, but it's just, the more you look into it logically, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how this was carried out. The official story that they're telling us doesn't make sense. And it just keeps adding on and on. The fact that the cameras weren't working at the appropriate time. These guards that are leaving, not doing their jobs, not checking up on Jeffrey Epstein, and people on suicide watch, how he was apparently taken off suicide watch. Whether that's true or not, I can't really tell anymore. Whether he was taken off suicide watch after he allegedly tried to commit suicide just 2 or 3 weeks previous. That doesn't add up. And then the most recent one is the fact that on Sunday, when am I recording this? Monday night. So Sunday, the 11th of August, the coroner finished his or her report, her autopsy report, but is not releasing it, waiting for more evidence to come up. Now, why on earth would the coroner wait for that? The coroner is supposed to release the report to say, this is what we found. There's certain things that the coroner could do, like tell how Jeffrey Epstein hung himself. What material did he use? Did he use a rope? Did he use a shoelace? Did he use a towel? What did he use in order to hang himself, in order to commit suicide? This has actually gone through, but they're saying we're going to hold off with the report till more evidence comes in. It seems to me like you've been told to hold off the report until they can fabricate more evidence, more than anything else. And it's just, you've screwed up when everyone, from conspiracy theorists all the way up to mainstream journalists, are saying that this does not look right, and that it appears as if he was actually murdered. This picture right here up on the screen, this to me is the most relevant of all of the memes that I've seen out of here. This one where you have the liberals, conservatives, conspiracy theories, and everyone else coming together to say Epstein was killed. He did not commit suicide. I don't think anyone's truly buying it, and why would they, with everything, all the sketchiness that is going on? See, it was sketchy enough just when he ended up getting killed, but I think for a lot of people, what did them in was the second they came out and said, oh yeah, our cameras weren't working. That is just BS. But we probably will never know the official story. They will never tell us the official story. What they're going to tell us is just Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, and that's how it's going to stay from here on out. So maybe we, the people, can dig up a little bit of evidence on this, because that's the only way we're ever going to figure out what the hell is going on.